Good evening. This is Cheryl Peralt coming from my home for Friday night wake up call. First off, I want to send birthday greetings to my very own father who's turned 80 today. And I'm grateful for my father and that we are still learning and teaching with each other. I'm learning gardening from him. He's learning about poetry. So happy birthday, Dad. I wanted to take a few minutes myself talking this evening before we start with an exciting program for this evening. I have five of folks on board for the first part of our feature. But I did want to say at this time, this is a program that offers some time for poetry and songs of songwriters, and also talk a little bit about life and creative process. And before we get started, I just wanted to address tonight the awareness at this time of pandemic, which is why we got started. We are facing about 104,000 who have died related to the pandemic that we know of in our country. 365,000 in the world, a lot of loss for us to comprehend and grieve. Somebody's mother, father, sister, brother, or child. And I have been made aware in our own local community the loss of a few friends that we've had who came and were features at Wake Up and Smell the Poetry. I'd like to say their names. Izzy Dovebird, who loved using humor and the funny side of life and yodeling in his original and cover songs. Sandra Haddon, a powerhouse of a singer-songwriter who died recently and sang for justice and was an activist for veterans. Mary Pratt, just recently, who had a beautiful, caring heart, a deep soul, and had an ethereal voice and gifted songwriter. Sadness for their loss and love to their families and loved ones. And I would also like to mention what we are likely aware of, the loss also of George Floyd, who's been in the news this week, a Black man who died tragically in police custody, unarmed and handcuffed with a knee to his neck for 8 minutes, saying, "I can't breathe," with one of the officers now charged for murder. And I just want to say that George was a father and a brother and a son. And take a moment to send love to his family and also to the families of the others that I mentioned, the world of us, knowing all the change and the healing that is needed for our world as we go on. I'm glad that we are talking about the topic of hope this evening with both our features of poetry and our singer-songwriter. But I feel that both feature segments, the people are involved in sharing words of hope with community in some way. And the idea in sharing this also is to contribute to the concept of hope and healing for our pandemic and post-pandemic world. And we will be starting talking about poetry this evening, and I have Cynthia Franza on board, as well as a number of participants here with me in this project that Cynthia is going to talk about for, Cynthia, you have 6 minutes now.
Ooh.
And Cynthia Franza, I'll just say, arrived here from Brazil just a few years ago. And she is a force, a creative force. And she started talking to me just a couple of months ago now with the pandemic about her idea of Words of Hope. So Cynthia, can you tell us about the idea you had for a community and how you got started, where the project is now, and what's ahead? And also maybe share a few words of your own.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Cheryl, for having me. I'm so glad to see other poets here. They are part of the book. Yay, the project. Thank you so much for your submissions also. Yeah, we talked with Cheryl in March. You were talking to start the pandemic and people talk about you cannot travel, you have a lot of issues and people are facing so much bad news. But you need hope. I was sharing this with Cheryl. You need hope to our neighborhoods, to our communities, to our country, and to our world. How can you do that? And then you start to think about ideas of hope, how to bring words of hope. And comes Hoptown and Beyond, Words of Hope that connect us in challenging times is the name of the project. Back in March, it was an idea. In April 10th, you launched the project officially on our website, hoptowntruepoetry.book.com. And for our surprise, so far you have 106 submissions for the project since the beginning, since April 10th. So I checked how many poems and stories you have so far. First, what is Hoptown True Poetry? You ask people for submit for our website. They submit stories of hope and talk a little bit about them and why they are submitting this poem this story about hope, because really you need this for uplift our spirits. So you send the word out, you spread the word, and then so far with 106 submissions, you have 86 poems, 8 stories, and 12 favorite poems they sent to us. So we're very happy and very thankful for that.
And what is the deadline?
Important. May 31st is the deadline for submissions. So you can go to our website again, hoptowntruepoetrybook.com, and send your submission. And you are checking all the poems in June, and you're notifying the writers about the status by the end of June. So because we have so much, so we have to check the poems and probably reply with some questions for the writers, some sentences about themselves, about the moment you are living. And then at the end of June, you are talking with the writers about the status of the project.
Right. Do you have a very fast timeline, hoping for the end of the year to have this project completed with Damiano Publishing?
Yeah, you are publishing this book. Our plan is publishing this book by the end of the year in December. You're doing Damiano's Publishing in Framingham. And another news, if I have time to share, is you have amazing projects going on in Metro West in our country called Front Steps Project. Like photographers go into the houses and take pictures of the families in their homes, and the fee for the photos go for charities. So you contact 3 photographers from 3 towns, Hopkinton, Southborough, and Framingham, and invite them to be part of this project with us. So our book will have words of hope and photos of families. It's like a unique and historical moment where we put together words and photos of people. So it's like a real portrait of our time. So they say yes. So you have around 20 photos coming for our book. So you'll be like a real portrait of our time.
That's right. And there's a spectrum of writers of different levels of experience, from published writers out in the field to people who are beginners who are submitting for contributions of what they see as hope. And I know it's very exciting. You have about 2 minutes now. So I know you have your own story to share. So perhaps we should hear from you as well.
So back in March, when you're talking about hope and about your drafting the project, like briefing, having ideas, was one day after the International Day of Happiness. And I was just checking the news, everyone was so overwhelmed, so stressful and anxious. And I was thinking to do something small, but something meaningful for my neighborhood. So I printed some bright cards with like a smiley face on the top and a heart on the bottom, and cut these little notes and put all the mailbox in my neighborhood. I was anonymous, so now I'm not.
Okay.
So I'm reading the story. So if people are watching me now, they say, this is my neighbor.
All right. Could you please read the story?
Yes.
I'm trying to be a serious time manager tonight.
Yes, ma'am. So call 124 Notes is back in March 21st, 2020. Saturday, March 21st, 2020. Early morning. I wore my disposable gloves and began my secret mission: spread happiness in my neighborhood. I had 124 notes in my pocket, printed in different bright colors. I will put them in all the mailboxes around me. The roads were empty, in total silence. Ghost town. A police car crosses the street. I heart the cards. Between the smiley face on the top and a heart in the bottom, the words in the note reveal my caring secret. Hi, neighbor. We are all stuck at home, keeping our distance from others, doing our bit to keep our families and the world healthy. Stay positive. Be strong. We are all in this together. Take care of yourself and your family. Sending love and health. Your neighbor. In light of the coronavirus pandemic, the idea of sharing a note maybe can bring us together as family and community to focus on practicing gratitude, kindness, love, and compassion. Late in that day, I saw a post on my neighborhood Facebook page. Thank you so much to the kind neighbor, whoever you are, who left this in the mailbox. It provides some much needed cheer and encouragement. If I made one person happy, that truly made my day. Deep in my heart, I just want to do something for people. We are all in this together. This is the story, anonymous person.
Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing your story. And that was where I think the seeds for this book, in a way. And we stay tuned, everybody, to watch Cynthia in action. And it's my pleasure to be partnering with her to help this book move on. So I have to say goodbye to you and thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you for the writers too. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, we have 2 more days for submissions.
Yes, just 2 more days. Thank you.
And now I have a few participants with us. We put out in this call for submissions not only original poetry and stories, but we also asked for sending some favorite poems by poets who have inspired words of hope. And unfortunately, we did not get as many contributions of favorite poems sent in, and also realized the complication as we started seeking permission and different complexity of it. So we have another plan, and that is to talk about the poem very briefly that inspires hope in us and the poet. And then I have invited these people who care about the poetry of others, of favorite poets, to also share their original poem or two that addresses hope in some way. So here we go. We're going to start off with Jenny Nagloski. Hi, Jenny. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hi, Cheryl.
Oh, good. And so thank you for being here and for submitting a favorite poem as well as original poem. And I wonder if you could tell about the poem that you had submitted, what you had, what inspired you, by Mary Oliver, right?
Yes, I had submitted actually 2, one by Mary Oliver and another by David White. And I would say both poets, Mary Oliver and David White, have inspired me in terms of going beyond myself, by going deep within myself, and going beyond myself by reaching out to others in solidarity. To their pain and suffering and amazement and awe, and to touch the lives of others deeply, so to leave a beauty mark that shows that I love. So love has inspired.
And thank you for sharing that and submitting them and sharing the good word of others. And you also write poetry.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been writing?
Well, ever since I was a teenager, but I've really have written primarily for myself and shared a few over the years with friends and family.
Well, I'm glad that you submitted some of your poetry, and you're going to share a poem or two now.
Yes.
You can tell the story, and I'll just let you know there's about, with our modified time now, I think there's about 2 or 3 minutes left.
Okay. The first poem. Will I enter the moment through the mundane today? My head is whirling, caught in a storm of thought, none of which are good or uplifting. Down, down, down she goes, a sinking ship in a whirlpool, a dark sea of negativity. I say to myself, Lift me up to the stars and the heavens away from the muck and mire. What value is there in the deep and dark? I want to travel high above it all, but then what do I become? So lofty among the stars and the heavens, far from ground and dirt. Let my hands get dirty and not be seduced by the sterile desire to deny my soul and humanity. And then, when I am truly lifted up, it will not be with the stars in heaven. It will be a new green shoot springing forth from the ground of dirt, from earth.
Well, thank you. I feel the hope of your message there. Thank you for sharing that beyond your family for submission for this evening. And did you have a second one?
I do.
Mhm.
And here it goes. Daylight has come. The night has given way to a new day, and the practice of acceptance begins. To let be what is, or is it to be what is? An opportunity to be a human being, not a human doing. Who are we really? Where are we going? Why so restless and on the move? There is something rich and full right here to satisfy my restlessness. I sense it deep within me. I need not earn, achieve, or search for it. It's beyond my naming. I cannot capture it. It captures me, although somehow we mutually agree. It is elusive and cannot be held in my hands for long. It flies from my grasp like a free bird in the wild, setting me free to be, even if only briefly. Freedom is found in contentment as I sit here with my cup of coffee in the silence of my living room, sun streaming in the window behind me, crackling noises from my baseboards as the heat comes on, intermittently breaking the silence. Everything I am and have are right now. What I have is my life, warmth, and a cup of coffee. And they are all gifts given to me as an entrance way to the miracle of being and being fully alive to all that is and is all in this moment. I am grateful and complete.
Thank you so much, Ginny. And I'm grateful for you being here and sharing.
No, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for having me.
Well, take care. And I'm going to now invite Barbara Fearer. Let's see. And Barbara, thank you for joining us. Hello.
Hello, thank
Barbara,
you.
it was nice to meet you for the first time and hear from you with your submission by poet. Can you please remind us of the poet that you submitted the poem of?
Okay, I had expected that I would like to read Wendell Berry's The Peace of Wild Things, which has been one of my favorites for many, many years. I guess I had really admire his focus on nature and faith, both. And that poem has been so special to me. My husband actually bought me a painting of it with a heron on it made out of quilling and with the poem written beside it. So
Wow.
it's been special. And I've spent a lot of time vacationing in New Hampshire and Maine on lakes, and nature in all of its phases it's just so important to me. And that's in this time period, this pandemic. It's nature that has kept me going. I managed to take walks almost every day, and I've just been so grateful that this has happened in the springtime when everything is turning green and growing, and there's this promise of nature that the seasons are predictable, certain things are happening. So you sort of feel like we'll get through it. Nature will help us.
And I know I hear that in your own poetry from what I've read, your love of nature, that it offers hope as well. And wonder if you could share that in the next couple minutes.
Okay.
Did you bring one or two?
I have a couple, I have a little book that I had published at one point. It's mostly nature, but so the one I had sent in to you, I think, was about spring peepers, which is always a special moment for me in nature when I hear those peepers in the spring. So this is called Spring Watch. It's April again. I am waiting, listening for the joy of spring peeper trills. Will it be tonight? Across the road, a neighbor's yard slopes to the spring-swollen Concord River. Rough tree trunks rise from dark water. Early mist drifts among the branches, the morning deeply quiet, the water cold and still. Later, April's sun gently warms the earth, and the water responds, begins to pulse and move, ready for the great event. Tonight, the pools come alive. Singing starts, the chorus builds, life bubbles up. I lost my place. Life bubbles up, the essence of spring. Clear sounds like a favorite symphony ring out in the waiting night. Listen, it's spring. The peepers are here.
And you had one more?
I do. One that I just wrote a couple days ago, actually. And I was playing off of William Carlos Williams here. So much depends on the basket of yellow pansies that I bought back in March, just before this all began. Placing money in the contact-free jar at the roadside flower place on Carlisle Road. Pleased to find a sign of spring. And still they grow happily on my deck, a bright burst of sunshine and hope each morning, on which I do depend.
Well, thank you so much. It's good to hear from your book you have, and we're delighted that you have submitted to this book project as well. And thank you for also.
I'm delighted to meet you, Cheryl, and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Take care, Barbara.
Okay.
And now we are going to move on to Ken Slaughter. Hi, Ken, if you could unmute yourself, we can hear from you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you for being here also for our lineup today. And I know you had sent a few favorite poets in, and we're going to talk a little bit about them and maybe how they have inspired your poetry. I've heard from you and been inspired by your poetry for years at Wake Up and Smell the Poetry. What do you have to share with us?
Thank you. The poets that I had selected were haiku poets. And the first one was Basho. He's the first well-known haiku poet. And the next one was Issa. And what I like about, I don't write haiku myself. I don't think I'm good enough at it. I write tanka, which is a little bit longer, 5 lines. But these poets were able to express in 3 lines in English what it takes other poets a page to express. And I've just found it to be amazing when you encounter really good haiku. Now, this is probably my favorite because he was a lover of insects, and a lot of his poetry was about insects, and he kind of personalized them, and he talked to them, and he kind of treated them like they were equals, at least in his poetry he did. So it's unfortunate. I know that these poems are not, these are written like centuries ago. So but anyway, that's tend to be a person of few words, and I like short poems. So my poems, the ones that I have today, are a little bit longer than a haiku. They're 5 lines. And so my first one is: a man wearing a mask calls me by name. Every stranger could be a friend.
Could you read that again, please, as we would ask you at Wake Up and Smell the Book?
Sure. A man wearing a mask calls me by name. Every stranger could be a friend. You don't really know. You see these people with masks on, and sometimes they're people that you know.
Mhm.
And also, every stranger could be a friend, maybe,
Right.
Okay, so the second one is one that I wrote before I ever heard of COVID-19. But I think it's kind of relevant. It has an unexpected relevance, which you'll see when I read the poem. Shadows intermingled on the snow, lives I have touched without even knowing.
And can you read that again, please?
Shadows intermingled on the snow, lives I have touched without even knowing. Now, of course, with COVID-19, we can touch lives without knowing it in a bad way. But so often, when I wrote this poem, I was only thinking of the good way that
Yeah.
we can touch people that we've never met or we don't even know that we've affected them. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
so
Thank
those are the two that I have,
Those are
and
the-
I appreciate your asking me to come on. Maybe I can give up a little bit of my time to whoever's coming next.
Well, thank you for sharing those poems and inspiration and hope, as well as talking about your inspiring haiku poets that we can go and look up and read more about these days.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
know I was just talking about you of being involved in community and working at a food bank, a local food bank, and want to thank you for that work that you're doing outside of poetry world as well.
Oh,
to
thank you
inspire.
very much. Appreciate
So
it.
thank you for being here, Ken,
Thanks.
and take good care.
Okay.
And now we have Bonnie, who is last on our lineup of participants of those who sent, I think this is half of the group who sent in favorite poets for that segment of the anthology project. So Bonnie, it's good to see you. Thank you for
Yes,
being
hi.
here with this group. And if you could share a few words about the poet that you had submitted, the poem of inspiration you felt hope in.
Right. So this is a poem by Galway Kinnell, and I can't say that I've had it or read it a lot, but many years ago, I had a friend, and she wrote me a letter, and she put a poem in it. And one of the lines was, "Hair will be interesting again." And in the midst of COVID-19 and everything being so overwhelming and so huge, I really started focusing on when will the mundane come back again? When will hair be interesting again? And so I put in a search just for that line, and up came the poem called Wait, that people may know, which is really about a woman, a student, who was ending a love affair, and she thought that life would never go on again. And so that thought came to my mind, and I started thinking about, especially after I submitted, when I couldn't read this poem. This morning I was thinking about hope as the still point in waiting, and that it's in the mundane. And if I have a minute, I have a little story, and I do have a very short poem that I submit. Which is that years ago when I lived in New York City, there was a man named Thurman, and he lived, this was in the early 80s when the Upper West Side was really seedy. But we all heard about him, and he was this wonderful Black man from South Carolina who was actually an actor, and he lived in a studio apartment, and we would all sit on the stoop of this old brownstone and wait for him. And if he had to spend an hour and a half with you, he did. And we would all just sit on the stoop. But the one thing that I took away decades and decades later is that when things seemed really bad, he would just say, all you need to know is that the sun will rise in the morning. That's all you need to know, that you can just go home with that. And sometimes it was just the simplest thing. And I've thought about phases, and we have the phases of opening and the phases of vaccines. And, I have my own illness and I'm always waiting for phase 2 and the latest drug trial. But just looking at the phases of the moon is what can really get us by, because that's the still point that's not going to change. So, and so we're waiting for a haircut or a job, or to be able to, not wear a mask. So I don't know what my timing is, but I have a very, very short poem.
Yes, please do share.
Okay. April 18, and light cotton balls of snow fall on daffodils, while confused budding trees stand alone, and clear eyes peer from quarantined windows. We know the snow will soon melt. The dull buds will burst into moist pink blossoms before green leaves appear, and we might not see it happen unless we stay behind the glass, watching, not touching, blessing every sacred breath.
Well, thank you so much,
That's
Bonnie,
it.
for sharing your story and your original poem and your favorite poem of Hope, or one of them.
Yeah.
Good to have you here as
Thank
well.
you.
Bonnie
Thank you.
Purple and Cynthia Franza and Barbara Führer and Jenny Migloski and Ken Slaughter. Thank you all for being here and sharing your thoughts, your stories about these poems of inspiration, and sharing your own as well. And we look forward to looking at the submissions soon. And we're delighted you've been a part of this project, and tonight in this way on film to share with folks at home. So one more thank you and gratitude to all of you, and take good care. And so I'll say goodbye and thank you, and look forward to reading and hearing more from all of you in the literary world. And now we're going to be moving on to Katie Frassinelli. And I know that she's here with us. And in the second segment of this program, as I combine usually poetry or an author and also a songwriter to contribute to this program, a half hour each. And so Katie is here with us tonight, a singer-songwriter from the Metro West. And Katie studied theater and received her MFA and worked in California, was a founding member of the Shotgun Players, and acted and directed and developed plays, and then met, as I read the bio, a very handsome man who is the set design artist, and got married, and he brought her back to the East Coast. And Katie did not start writing songs until she had twins. And the twins started to sleep, is what I read in the bio, which is an interesting time to start writing songs. And Katie has been writing them since. And I noted on her website the reference of Katie writing from the heart, whether it's about a broken heart or if it's about a broken justice system, but that there is a message of hope in Katie's songs. She likes people to know, and Katie has her debut CD called Let Me Down Easy, and she's here right now, kind of down the street from me away, but I haven't seen you in a while, Katie. Thank you for joining this evening.
Hi, thanks
How
for
are you
having me.
doing?
I'm doing
Yes.
okay. Doing all right.
Yes.
This is fun. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm delighted that you could join, and really like how you fit in with the theme this evening. And how are pandemic days? You have your full family at home.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. And you, I'm sure, are keeping busy with family and work. And do you have time to write songs or collaborate these days?
No, it's so interesting. I feel like all over the internet, there's all these writers and musicians being so creative, and I feel like I'm in a real shutdown time. I was so glad that you asked me to do this because, I've done a couple of those a cappella recordings with my church band for our Sunday services. But other than that, I just really haven't felt motivated. And I think it's part of it is just sort of being shut down in my little office garret. So it's interesting. It's an interesting time.
Yeah. Well, I will say, because I've seen some of those, the church band performances, it's really great to see and hear band members and get the sound synced, and for people to hear, wonderful, inspiring songs that way. So that's no small task you're doing there.
It's fun. I don't do the hard part. I just sing.
Yes, but it's good to hear your voice, and I'm glad you're going to be sharing a few of your songs tonight. And one of the things about you in particular also is you are the creator of the theme song for Wake Up and Smell the Poetry, if folks don't know. And although Wake Up and Smell the Poetry is now retired as of May, if people go and click on in the archive past programs, they will hear your even song in the last year or so. And I know that was a song that both my ears for the words and the sound just loved. My heart went out to, and I asked you if we could use it for theme song. And I know there's an interesting story involving poetry, a relative, and then your consequent song. If you could tell us about and then perhaps perform.
Yeah, this was actually the lyrics are a poem by my great uncle, Ridgely Torrance, who was at the time a very well-known poet. He wasn't very prolific, and I think a lot of people say that's why he didn't gain as much notoriety as critics expected him to. But he was the editor of the new poetry editor of the New Republic, and he was contemporary of Robert Frost, and he's a very interesting person. And he was also a playwright. He wrote the first plays for Black people on Broadway that were representative of their true experience and not playing into stereotypes or not played by white actors. So he was well known for that at the time too, which I'm proud of.
And
yeah,
did you have a chance to read his plays?
Yes, and as the critics said, they're not super well written plays. No, those actually are. He wrote a few other plays that were very kind of heavy.
Yeah,
but yeah,
he
but
was
beautiful poet.
Of this theme song, right?
Yes. Would you like me to play it?
You were asked to put this together, is that right? Or
oh yes, my Aunt Catchy, my great Aunt Catchy said at one point, she said, "Will you put that song to music for my memorial?" I was like, sure. So Aunt Catchy is alive and well, and has been for quite some time since she asked me to write this. So
she's all set with her song for them.
Hopefully I'll never need to play it for her.
Well, I was wondering, I know you have two songs you mentioned of family, and perhaps you could move on, tell us what you like about Evensong and move into the second one as well, if you like.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want me to play first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great. Sure.
This is Evensong. Beauty calls and gives no warning. Shadows rise and wander on the day. In the twilight, in the quiet evening, we shall rise and smile and go away. Just realized why this is so low? Because I'm not singing it with the cable on.
The
Like, why does this sound so bad? All right. It's a short song. I'll start it again.
yes.
Beauty calls and gives no warning. Shadows rise and wander on the day. In the twilight, in the quiet evening, we shall rise and smile and go away. Under the flaming leaves, freezes the sky, it is the season who grieves, not you, not I. All our springtimes, all our summers, we have kept the longing warm within. Now we leave the aftercomers to attain the dreams we could not win. Under the flaming leaves, freezes the sky, it is the season grieves, not you, not I. We have wakened sweet and had our birth, and that's the end of earth. And we have toiled and smiled and kept the light, and that's the end of night.
Thank you. Yeah, I can see why your relative wanted that for.
Yeah. I like it. It's someone said of him once that he was born somewhere between heaven and Xenia, Ohio, which was his hometown.
Wow.
He had a very otherworldly quality to him. And I just found out that there are recordings of him reading his poetry that are in the Library of Congress, which I have to find out how one listens to that. But
Wow.
that was exciting.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And you have another
Sure.
family song?
Yeah, so this one I wrote, my grandparents who, so my grandmother was his, she was his niece. And she and my grandfather were fabulously in love. They met in May of 1939 and got married in August. And they were married for a very long time. And my grandfather lived to be 100 and a bit. And he had a stroke one night, had a mini stroke. And I kept thinking, I'm not ready to say goodbye. And that started to come into a song. And I was like, I want to write a sad song about that. So I decided to write a song about their first date instead. So this is called The Long Way Home. When he thinks of heaven, he pictures her blue eyes. And for those curls, he'd walk 1,000 miles. The dance is over, the night draws to a close. And then she asks to walk her the long way home. And he says, I could hold your hand forever. And I could walk with you all night. The stars are fading and the sun's about to rise. But I'm not ready to say goodbye. From moonlit walking to front porch light, they thank each other for a lovely night. Her lavender perfume, he knows that's what he'd miss. And so he holds her gently for one soft kiss. And he says, I could hold your hand forever, and I could walk with you all night. The stars are fading and the sun's about to rise, but I'm not ready to say goodbye. She finds her key, turns the porch light on. A spring in his step down the long brick walk. He turns to see her bedroom light go on. She opens the window. He holds his breath as she begins to talk. And she says, I could hold your hand forever, and I could walk with you all night. The stars are fading and the sun's about to rise, but I'm not ready to say goodbye. No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to say goodbye.
Just beautiful. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
It's obvious that you show a love and deep sense of connection to family in these songs that you wrote for your first CD. And I'm just curious why your twins sleeping through the night. What got you going at that point to start writing songs?
I think I just needed something for myself at that point. They were kind of all consuming, and I'd always said, oh, I wish I could play the guitar. I wish I could sing. You know, I can't ever do that. And my husband got tired of hearing it, and he said, just get a guitar and learn to play 3 chords. And so I would, and it was just, that was when I started playing music. And then you brought me to my first songwriter retreat or a songwriter session, and Steve Rapson came and he intimidated me, scared me. He said, if you want to come back, you have to write a song. And I was like, I don't know how to write a song. So I thought he was serious, so I wrote a song. And so it's your fault. It's your fault. I'm a songwriter.
He was serious, and you were too. It's been a true pleasure to hear your songs and the evolution of them. And what I know about you is you're very committed to community service through church and community, and you're involved in organizations for racial justice and immigration justice. Is that correct? Also through
yeah, I'm in a racial justice team at church, and we also collaborate with an immigration justice team. So, you know, it's really all of the justice issues are intersected. And I work with a group down in New Orleans called Families and Friends of Louisiana's Incarcerated Children. And, you know, when I found them, I didn't know we incarcerated kids. And so it's been a eye-opening few years since I met them.
Yes, well, it sounds like a lot of important eye-opening work. And what I know of you also is your focus in your songwriting has been evolving over time too. And some of your songs are addressing what you're learning from your work and community. And I know you had one about Ruby Bridges. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, this song I wrote, I think it took me like 3 years to write it. I got this vague idea of the white fabric sails of the slave ships and the white fabric of the KKK robes, and then the white dress that Ruby Bridges wears in the Norman Rockwell painting of what is it? I forget the name of it, but it's when she integrates the school, and they're throwing tomatoes at her. And so trying to connect those, and I do a songwriting retreat with Dar Williams in the summer, and I explained what I wanted to write about, and she went, "Oh, okay." And then over the course of 3 years, I sort of turned it into a song, and she was very supportive. That's one thing that's going online this summer, my annual retreat. So it'll be interesting. But I'm gonna miss being in person with them. So this is called Ruby Bridges. White sails billow in the wind, dark souls down below are their sin, sold and beaten and bound in chains to pick cotton, to make the sails again. Dig deep inside where the spirit meets the bone. What flag do you fly when you're alone? What page of history do you call your own? Down deep where the spirit meets the bone. White robes, the devil lies within. 9 prayers pray, forgive his sins. He's gone too far, his hatred wins. 9 bullets traded for angels' wings. Dig deep inside where the spirit meets the bone. What flag do you fly when you're alone? What page of history do you call your own? Down deep where the spirit meets the bone. Black girl, starched white cotton dress, eyes straight, deliberate steps. She opens her school book, and on the first page, Ruby Bridges prints her name. Ruby Bridges prints her name.
Wow, powerful song. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Have you shared that one out publicly?
I don't know if I have actually. It's on my new album, which got halted. We were in the middle of recording when all this happened, so I don't know when we'll get back to that. So it's nice to get to play it. And I think today it's particularly appropriate. You know, I think we as white people tend to sort of say, well, oh, I feel so bad and things are, things have to get better and we have to do better and this is America, and but it's like, but what are you doing? And really, if you look deep down, where do you stand and what do you do? And also the idea of people writing their own history, that Ruby Bridges wrote the history. So, which voices do we lift up?
Well, thank you for debuting it here.
Sure.
And yeah, there's so much more I'd love to ask you about, but I see we have about a little less than 5 minutes actually.
Okay.
I know you had planned one more song to end.
Sure.
Oh, what is the name of your new CD?
When the Winds Blow.
All right. And is there a focus, evolution of some kind in the songs of this new CD?
They all seem to have a feeling of things are not great now, but they can be. They're getting better and they can be better. Yeah, right. Once I assembled them, I was like, oh, that is kind of a common thread.
Okay, we need to hear that CD, and this is a song if you'd like to give it a introduction. And
Yes, this one's called Life Goes On, and I actually wrote it right here when it was snowing, and it's not snowing now. So
when it was snowing during the pandemic.
no, this was a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
A few years ago. Yeah. Oh no, I'm not. I'm telling you, I'm not that creative right now. All right, here we go. Snow falls gently out the window, but a storm is raging in your head. And even though you haven't slept for hours, you pull the covers over your head and get out of bed. 'Cause life goes on and on and on and on, and I will be right here beside you. On and on and on and on and on. If you think you're all alone, or you just need a gentle hand to guide you, my love goes on and on and on. Let me be the one who comforts you through the grays and the blues, as you wander through the tunnels of your sadness. It's me you'll never lose, it's you I choose. 'Cause life goes on and on and on and on, and I will be right here beside you. On and on and on and on and on. If you think you're all alone, you just need a gentle hand to guide you. My love goes on and on and on. When your thoughts are all dark and the voices are tearing you apart, rest your head close to my heart. Rest your mind, let the healing start. 'Cause life goes on and on and on and on and on. Life goes on and on and on and on, and I will be right here beside you. On and on and on and on and on. If you think you're all alone, you just need a gentle hand to guide you. My love goes on and on and on. So hold on, my love goes on and on and on. So hold on, my love goes on and on and on. So hold on.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. Timely and important message and song as the other songs you shared with us. And I see we're just about out of time. And I appreciate you bringing some hope, message of hope from your heart. And these songs, the first ones and the new ones to come. So we'll stay tuned. Check out your website, katiefressinelli.com, right?
Yep.
For the news of the launch of these songs and your CD. Any last word you want to say in our last minute?
Just thank you. And for anyone who's not being creative out there, it's okay.
Yeah,
It's
that's
okay.
right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Katie, and take care.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, HCAM crew, also. Take care, everyone.